Okay, the recording has begun. Welcome, everybody, to another IT Legend interview. This one is being done on August the 3rd of 2026. So that's way into the future of where this gentleman started. And the gentleman we are talking about today is an absolute utter IT, and not just IT, CPA comptroller legend,
Oh
the man, the
man.
myth, doctor, as I call him, because behind the scenes, I've relied on Jeff to talk me off the ledge a few times on various topics, and maybe vice versa a little bit. But
Yes,
Jeff
definitely vice
Boortz,
versa. Yeah.
yeah, but Jeff Boortz, what a legend. We are thrilled today to get to talk to you and learn a little bit more about the man, the myth, the legend, Jeff Boortz. So anyway, I'll have a few questions, Jeff, that I'll run through today to
Sure.
ask you a little about your history and your
Ask
time
away,
in
man.
CPA. And so, okay, sounds good. Well, we'll dive right on in. So,
Absolutely.
Jeff, tell me a little bit about your origin story. Where did you grow up? What were some of your favorite things as a kid? And where did you go to school? All those kind of things. So, yeah, tell me more.
Okay. Well, thank you, Vince. You're like one of my best buddies up at the CPA, so I appreciate that. And yes, I do rely on you just as much as you rely on me, Dr. Sellers. We call each other that because we've relied on each other many times. But
Yes,
so I guess I'll start out. I was born in Hillsboro, Texas. That's between Waco, close to where you're from, Vince,
that's
if I
right.
remember right.
You got it. Yes.
Born in Hillsboro. All my oldest relatives lived there. My grandmother lived in Hill County her entire life. My dad's side of the family, my mom's side of the family, all are from that general area. But I did not grow up there. After I was born, a couple years, I think we lived there, and then we moved to Fort Worth. Went to first grade there, and then moved down to Austin. My mom had put herself through court reporting school and landed a job at the Railroad Commission here in Austin, and so we moved to Austin. Went to Travis Heights Elementary School at the time, second grade. And then in the third grade, I guess my parents decided to divorce, which was a good thing. I mean, those of you who come from divorced families, sometimes, you're shocked or whatever. I was, think, 8 years old, but, some things are just for the best, my mom and dad, kind of fought a lot, not physically, but just verbally. And I remember all of that. And my dad needed to grow up. He was a playboy. Mom took care of me, and she landed, like I said, a job at the Railroad Commission, and decided that she didn't need to put up with stuff anymore. So once she started making her own living, and a good living at that, um, she decided to divorce my dad, and then my mom remarried. And so during the divorce, she pulled me from Travis Heights and put me downtown at Peace Elementary School, so that she could pick me up after she got off work at the Railroad Commission. And then my mom remarried. And the funniest thing is, I'll never understand why. And I could probably still ask her this question and she can't answer it. But they literally pulled me out of this was my second school in the third grade. They pulled me out 2 weeks before the end of the school year, and we moved to Midland, which is where my stepdad was from. And just to kind of tell you how they connected, he worked for Exxon or Humble at the time, and Exxon is oil and gas. My mom was a court reporter for oil and gas, railroad commission, so you can put the pieces together. So he worked in the oil industry on the administration end. And so, yeah, I had to go to the third school in the third grade for the last 2 weeks in Midland. So it was a hard year. It's really hard when you're that young. You have friends, and you just about the time you're making good friends, you have to, pick up and leave again. So then I went to that was the rest of the third grade. Went to the fourth grade in Midland, and then my stepdad got transferred to New Orleans, of all places. My mom absolutely despised New Orleans. She was going to put me in private school, I think, had we stayed there long enough. But we were only there during the summer. I remember it rained every day, and it was humid and hot. And before the summer's end, my stepdad got transferred again to Pensacola, Florida. And so
Wow.
we moved there before school started. And so in the fifth grade, I went to elementary school in Pensacola. And after that year ended, my stepdad got transferred back to Midland, which is where I finished up my years growing up. So from the 6th grade on, grew up in West Texas, oil and gas country, tumbleweeds hitting you in the face, you name it. If you've never been out that way, it's flat, it's dry, it's hot. If you've ever lived in a sandstorm in West Texas in the spring, you will definitely remember it. I can remember walking home from school and the sand would be blowing so hard it would hit you in the face and literally make your face sting. And the sky would be red.
Oh,
Even after I graduated high school, and I'll go back on
yeah,
that in a second, even
for
when I went
sure.
to Texas Tech in Lubbock, which is where I went to school,
Mhm.
I can remember sandstorms. You'd be on your way to class and the sandstorms would hit and the sky would literally be red. It would almost be like you're on Mars or something. And then the weird thing is, toward the end of the evening, the wind would totally die down. There was no wind whatsoever. And it was an eerie stillness, but the sky was still red. And you almost felt like you were literally on a different planet. It was crazy. So anyway, sandstorms in West Texas. If you've never been through one, you got to try it one day. A little tumbleweed hit you in the face. It'll smart, trust me, when it hits you. But I went to junior high there, went to Midland Lee High School at the time. Those of you that are familiar with Friday Night Lights and all the football
Yes.
rivalries out in West Texas, Odessa Permian was our huge rival, district rival. And some other schools around there too. And I think you just did an interview for Rick Williams like last month, and Rick went to Abilene Cooper, and that was one of our rivals in our district. So it's amazing sometimes how your paths,
Yeah.
come so close to crossing of people that are around your age that you
Mhm.
could have possibly known or run into. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was in band in high school. During marching season, I played xylophone because I knew how to play the piano. During concert season, I played bass clarinet. I was an all-stater 3 years in a row, which I'm very proud of. My sophomore year that I was at Midland Lee, got the honor of being the state honor band. 4A was as high as anything went at that time. There was no 5A, no 6A, no Class A and Class B and all that kind of stuff. So 4A was it, and the summer before I got there, they picked Midland Lee out of all the bands that had submitted tapes to be the state honor band. So it was a real honor my sophomore year to be able to go and do a concert at the Music Educators Convention in Fort Worth, actually. And I was an all-stater as well. So not only did my whole band go, but then I also got to participate being an all-state band and being with kids from all around the state. It was a great experience, as were the next 2 years too. So it was a lot of fun, but graduated from high school and I had kind of had to make a clean cut. I probably could have gotten a scholarship in music. I mean, I really loved music, but I didn't want to make a career out of it. For one, there's not really a lot of money in it. And, money makes the world go round. So I wasn't even in the band at Tech. I know a lot of kids that graduate high school either come down to UT, go to Texas Tech, they're maybe a member of the band there and march for them. But I made a clean break for it. And so the next 4 years, I was at Texas Tech. It was a great place to go to school. It's not probably on the academic level as A&M or UT, but the cool thing about Tech is it was close enough to Midland that I was a couple hours from home, so I was close enough to be home if I needed to run home, but far enough away to kind of be away from my parents and kind of do some growing up. But
Sure.
uh, I was an only child for my mom and my dad. When my mom remarried, he had a son and a daughter. So I gained, after 50 years going on now, I gained a sister and I gained a brother. My stepbrother is a year older than me, and my stepsister, who lives here in Austin, is about 7 years older than me, or 7 or 8 years. And then my dad also remarried, and she had a daughter. So I have another sister that lives in the Kingwood area around Houston. So I was very blessed. I think this late in life, you really come to realize that if my parents hadn't remarried, I would literally not have had any siblings. And coming from not really a huge family, I would probably be literally alone right now. So it was a blessing in disguise that I gained that out of it. And my mom is still alive. She lives in Burnett with my stepdad. She's 82. My stepdad is 96. So yeah, there was about almost a 15-year gap between my mom and my stepdad. That was hard. I'll just leave it at that. But it was almost like 3 generations growing up. He grew up poor in Mississippi and worked for everything he got. So he was very a disciplinarian, strict, which I probably needed at the time. But he was a strict guy. And then my stepmom actually got my dad to grow up. So he ended up being a great family man to my sister, and ended up just being a great guy. And I lost him in 2017. He had Parkinson's, rheumatoid arthritis, you name it. Once one thing happens, it seems like it just kind of escalates from there. But my stepmom and I are still extremely close. She moved to the Houston area to be close to her daughter, but I still go there quite often, and she's just like my second mom. I'm like her son. And so very blessed to, I never was a part of a family where you had an evil stepsister, a stepfather or stepmother.
Sure.
Everybody was nurturing and caring and loving, and I really lucked out and got 2 great extra set of parents. So no complaints.
Fantastic.
So yeah, always had kind of a goofy deal with nature. I was always catching things, always getting stung, catching lizards, catching frog, you name it. I was outside. Of course, growing up, it's so much different than now, even though I don't have kids. We were always outside. I would be gone for hours at a time. My mom didn't worry. She knew I'd touch base. We were always off doing something, playing in the field, climbing trees, catching stuff. And you didn't have to worry about all the weird stuff that goes on these days where you're kind of scared to let the kids out of your sight. No weirdness. Or if it was so random that, it was a every 10-year occurrence or something if something weird happened. But yeah, I think, looking back, I think those were some of the best times that I had, was just being outside. When I'd go down to my grandparents or go to my great-grandparents, because they all lived in little towns out in the country around Hillsboro. I was always crawfishing, or, I was always out doing something. There was never, shooting wasp nests with my BB gun and then getting chased. Shooting, walking around with a BB gun or pellet gun, shooting birds with my cousin, or, we were always doing something. But we were good kids. We didn't get into trouble. We were literally, pretty good kids. Yeah, we did some things to get us in trouble, but not bad trouble. Just being a kid trouble, but nothing like stealing or, doing weird stuff or deviating with the wrong crowd. None of that. Plus I was scared to death if that ever happened. So, when you live in fear sometimes of that, you just don't, when you're not given the opportunity, you don't do it. So luckily my parents kept me in line, and overall, I think I was a good kid. Graduated from tech, didn't know what I wanted to do, so I just got a general business administration degree in management. During my college years, when I would go back home to Midland, I worked in retail, and I worked at Dillard's during the summers. I would go back. I would work during Christmas break. I had worked there enough times to where I knew I could pretty much get my job back. I worked in customer service. I worked in credit. I worked in the men's department initially. Started off stocking, but it's kind of one of those things. I think if you do a good job, whether it's here at the Comptroller's office or just a kid working in retail through college, if you do a good job, people will take you back, or they want you because they know what a good worker you are. And that's really all I tried to do, was just be a good worker. I can always hear my grandmother in my ear saying, if you're going to do something, do it right. And those words stick with me. And I was extremely close to my grandmother. I was an only grandchild of hers. I probably learned more life lessons from her than anybody. We were extremely close. She bought me my first car. She taught me life lessons. She took me out in the country and taught me how to drive. In Hill County, toward Aquila and Whitney, and the back roads, which she had grown up in, were dirt roads at the time. She knew how fast you could go around every curve. We'd come up on a curve and she'd go 30 or 45, or she knew it. That's where she grew up. So I was really close to her, and I lost her in 2009, but I'll just never forget all the things I learned from her, and the love that she gave. And her and my mom and me were 3 peas in a pod, very tight. Mom was an only child. So, I was an only child for my mom, so you can reason to see how tight and close we were. And actually, so on through college, uh, got my degree, and the deal is I didn't know what I was going to do.
Sure.
I was in management, and my only experience really was in retail. And so
Mhm.
I interviewed with some different companies, Frito-Lay, which I think is part of PepsiCo, or PepsiCo is part of Frito-Lay at the time, may not
Sure.
still be the same. But I interviewed with Joske's, which I don't know if you guys remember Joske's.
I
It
do.
was a department store chain, mostly in the Texas area, with one store in Arizona. It was Texas based. It was headquartered out of San Antonio. So they had a really good executive management training program. And so I accepted a job from them, and I started work down in Corpus Christi,
Mhm.
which was different than Midland, I should say. Culturally, just everything. It was a hard move for me to grow up in Midland and kind of be that far from home. But my dad still lived here in Austin, so he was within 4 hours. Um, but the funny thing is, I kept waiting kind of for Dillard's to offer me a job in their area manager, for a department there. I had the degree now, so I was ready for the next step. And they waited until after I'd already accepted a job with Joske's to have the big guy come down and interview me. And they offered me to be an area sales manager at a new store in a new Dillard store in Santa Fe, New Mexico. They were
Wow.
building a brand new store there, and I was scared to death. I did, now if I had it to do over again, Santa Fe sounds really pretty cool. I've been there many times, but at that time, I didn't know if I would do that. And I don't go back on my word. If I commit to something like I did with Joske's, Dillard's hit me up too late. I mean, you come in late and you lose the whatever. So I stuck with my guns and went down to Corpus. I was down there for a couple of years. And then the funny thing is, and this is my advice to any people that job hop around, never burn your bridges, because what ended up happening is Dillard's bought Joske's. Um, I don't know if you remember back in the 80s, but there were these people called corporate raiders. And what
Mhm.
they would do is they were these, rich businessmen or women that would buy a huge company. And Joske's was part of a bigger retail conglomeration all around the country. Joske's was based here in Texas, but in Washington State, it was called the Bon or the Bon Marché. Moss Brothers, uh, Brooks Brothers, those of you know, Ann Taylor. There were a lot of stores affiliated with Allied stores. And so what this guy did is he bought Allied stores in general. And of course, they're in it to make money. And that's why they call them corporate raiders. And then what they did is they would sell off chunks of stores. And so Joske's was, we had 27 stores at the time. And Dillard's had never been in the Houston market at all. They were in San Antonio, they were in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, they were in Austin, but they had never penetrated the Houston market at all. And so that was a quick and easy way for Dillard's to all of a sudden make its presence known in the Houston market. So they bought, the stipulation was they had to buy all the stores. They couldn't buy just one or two. So they had to buy the entire chain. And Dillard's had just opened up a brand new store in Corpus Christi where I was working at Joske's. The malls were right next to one another. I worked in the new mall. The Dillard's that was the old Dillard's that was there was in the old mall, and then they built the new Dillard's in that same mall, and then turned the old Dillard's into just a part of the mall. So they had a brand new store.
Sure.
So that was crazy. We all came to work one day. We heard the executives were coming down from Dillard's. We'd already been going through the conversion of, merchandise and all that kind of stuff for a few months. But then we all heard that they were all coming down in their private jet, and we saw the writing on the wall. They were probably going to tell us they were going to close the old Josky store, which was
Yeah.
a newer Dillard's now. So, and sure enough, they said, we are closing this store in 2 months, and we will try to absorb as many jobs as we can in the new store that we built, which was a way lot bigger than the old one. But they ended up, at first they were going to move me over to that store, and I was going to co-manage the men's department, but that didn't happen. And they ended up keeping only three. We were area sales managers at the time at Joske's. I had housewares, China, God, what all do I have? Housewares, China. Those were my two main areas. When I started there, when I ended there, I was over the men's department, area sales manager of the men's department. So they kept three of us. They moved two of us to Austin, and they moved one of us to Odessa, and all of the rest they let go. So I felt honored, scared. But the cool thing is, my dad, I had always, when we lived in Austin in the early 70s, Austin is a special place. And I had always wanted to come back to Austin. You know, every time I'd come visit my dad, I just, you know, it would just bring back memories. And I loved Austin, and because it was quirky, and you know how it was back in the
Oh
day.
yeah, it's awesome.
And
Yeah.
so my dad still lived here, even though he was mad that I didn't come down here and try to go to UT and live with him. You know, I decided to go to Tech instead. You know, I had always wanted to come back to Austin. And so the weird thing is, fate, they moved two of us to Austin, and we were area sales managers at Highland Mall. So back at the time, those of you that have been in Austin for years and years, Highland Mall was the gig back then. It was one of the first major malls in the Austin area that opened up in, I think, 1971. Barton Creek opened up in 1983, and we're talking about 1987 when I moved back. So Barton Creek was only like 5 years old, 4 years old, and I consistently, back in the day, I beat them. Pretty much when I first got Highland Mall, I was over housewares in China. We won a statewide contest for a vendor in China. If you've heard of Oneida, my team won the Oneida. We sold the most goods out of all the Dillard stores in the division, and so that was a big deal. And then they moved me down to ladies' accessories. So I had handbags, hosiery, fashion jewelry, scarves, all kinds of accessories. It was a big department. I had 30 women that worked for me. That was interesting, but you know, I was the dude, and you know, it was a good ride. I had a lot of good memories there. And I was getting to the point in retail. I'd done it for 4 years as a manager or being in management. And the next obvious move when you do that is to get promoted to the buying offices where you're an assistant buyer. And so one of the things you do as an area manager back in the stores is you work closely with your buyers, your assistant buyers on, you know, merchandise and what's selling. And of course, Christmas is your year. If you don't make Christmas, you've not made your entire year. Everything revolves around your Christmas season, even though you're selling stuff year round.
Sure.
So I knew probably after Christmas of 87, of 89, it was 2 years. I got there in 87, it was getting to be 89. So the Christmas season of 88, I saw the writing on the wall and knew I was pretty much probably going to be promoted to the buying offices for Dillard's in San Antonio at the time. They're not there now, they're in Fort Worth, but at the time they were in San Antonio. And I was probably going to be an assistant buyer in, guess what, ladies' accessories, because that's where my contacts were. And really, when you get into the buying offices, it doesn't matter whether you're male or female. Your goal is to push goods, right? You go to New York, the vendors, you know, Dillard's is a huge contract. So the vendors wine you and dine you and try to get you to buy their goods and a year earlier so that you can get them in the stores and sell. And so I had a decision to make. I had been, told you my grandmother and I were really close. Well, we had a relative who was pretty well known. He knew a lot of politicians. He knew John Conley, and he knew Bob Bullock. And remember, Bob Bullock was from Hillsboro. So you kind of see the connection now. So I had told my grandmother, you know, I just got to get out of retail. If I don't get out now, I'm never going to get out because I'm going to start making more money, and then I'm just going to be stuck. And I'm going to be working 6 days a week, and I'm going to be not enjoying Christmases anymore because retail will break your Christmas spirit. Trust me. All of the things you love about Christmas, Santa Claus, being with family, Thanksgiving, all of those fun things you don't get when you're in retail. Thanksgiving is not the same. The day after Thanksgiving is the biggest day of the year. You're open early, you close late, you're working your butt off, and you don't get to enjoy Christmas as a normal person. The first Christmas that I went home from Corpus when I was at Joski's, those of us that were traveling out of town, they let us go at 3 Christmas Eve because the store closed early at 6. I flew home to Midland Christmas Eve, and I flew back to Corpus Christmas Day, less than 24 hours later because I had to be there for the day after Christmas, right? That's when all the people start herding
Yep.
in for after Christmas sales and returns and all of that
Mhm.
stuff. So your whole love of Christmas disappears in retail. And it literally took me years after I worked for the controller's office to love Christmas again, to where I was a normal person, to where I could enjoy it and just kind of feel
Yeah,
sorry for the people that had to, do the hours that I used to have to do.
sure,
And when you're
sure.
in management at Dillard's, you're salaried. So it doesn't
Yeah.
matter if you work 40 hours or 90 hours, you
Yep.
get paid the same. You don't get overtime, you don't get time for time,
Mm.
and you work your what off, and
Yeah.
that's what you do. And then during the Christmas season, because my best friend was a assistant buyer and buyer for Dillard's in the Phoenix division, literally the whole Christmas season you're traveling out to all the stores, making sure merchandise is presented, making sure it's selling. So you're doing road shows literally the whole Christmas season, so you do get to enjoy it. So I had mentioned to my grandmother, I got to get out, and so she mentioned to this relative who had influence that I was trying to get out, and he said, "Well, have him send me his resume." So I sent uh, this person my resume up in the Dallas area, and the next thing I know, during the Christmas season, probably about 2 weeks before Christmas, I get a call. I didn't apply for anything. I got a call from the comptroller's office. And I'll never forget, it was the deputy controller over the personnel administration. Everybody had
Mhm.
different titles back then, but he called me, said he was with the comptroller's office. I didn't even know what it was. I mean, I found out it was a state agency, but I didn't know what it was.
Sure.
And he said, "Hey, can you come in for an interview?" And I was like, "Oh, yeah, sure." And so I went in for an interview, and it was literally, I'm not kidding, a BS interview. You like sports? How's the weather? Very little inquiries on, my skill set or any of that kind of stuff. I didn't realize it at the time. Of course, now I look back and think, oh, good Lord, I was a must hire. But back then I didn't know what that was. But anyway, my connection was through Bob Bullock. And so I had the interview, and literally a couple of days later, I told him, I said, "Look, I'm not making any money right now. I can't take a cut in pay. That's my only deal." And I
Yeah.
wasn't being demanding. I was just, there's no way I could afford to live on. I mean, it was barely 20,000, right, back then. So, I said, I just can't take a cut in pay. And he said, "Well, I think we'll be able to whatever." And literally 2 days later, they called me and said, "Can you start on the 1st, January 1st,
Mhm.
1989?
Wow.
And I thought, "Yeah, sure." He goes, "You're going to be an accounts examiner." And I thought, wow, that sounds really cool, whatever that is. I had no idea what the comptroller's office even did, but it was my way out of retail. I had to have
Yeah.
faith. I had to trust. And so what actually ended up happening, in my perception of what I thought it was going to be, were two totally different things. When you're young, you think, "Oh, wow, I'm going to get in and I'm going to be an executive, and I'm going to have all this power, whatever, and I'm going to have my own office." Oh, boy,
Oh
was I
yes.
wrong.
Yeah.
But it is what it is, right? So now my dilemma was, I was going to have to give my notice during the Christmas season, which, as I told you earlier, Christmas is your Christmas is your game, right? So I gave my notice, and of course, back then we literally closed the store on a Sunday to do inventory. Literally, you had to show up in person. We didn't have all the electronics that we do now to scans and barcodes and all that stuff. So you literally had to count the merchandise by hand. And nobody knew the merchandise in their departments like I did. And when you work in fashion jewelry and all that, everything has a separate SKU number, department number, all that kind of stuff. And it has to be organized by department. So my manager said, "Oh my God, Jeff, you're a natural. You're getting ready to be promoted to an assistant buyer. You're a natural at this." And I said, "I know, but I don't want to spend my life in retail like you. You never have a day off. You're
Yep.
older. You don't get to enjoy Christmas. You don't get to spend time with your family. I don't want to do that." And so she accepted even though they sent somebody down from corporate to try to talk me out of it, I wasn't going to change. So I gave my notice, and they asked me if I could stay. I think inventory was like the week after January 1st. So it was the first Sunday after. So in other words, it would have been a week into my comptroller job. So they asked if I could at least come in after work and get them through inventory. And I said, yes, of course. I'll come in after work. I'll work all day Saturday as long as you need me, and I'll work all day Sunday as long as you give me my salary.
Mhm.
which not a whole thing, just, if you
Yeah,
just,
yeah. Proportion.
give me what I was worth, like I'm working extra week. And they agreed to do that. And so, of course, that came in handy because I didn't realize working for the state, you get paid a month after you work. And so that was a shocker that I had not planned for.
Yep. Yep.
But I did it. I made the cut. I still maintained, good relationships with the people at Dillard's. You just never know when you might need them again.
You don't.
And so my advice again is never burn your bridges, because just because you got something else lined up doesn't mean that you can tell the people that you're leaving, I love Vista, and tell them to
Yeah.
F off, and whatever. So in fact, many times I would go up there and visit with the manager. I would go back and see my old friends. I'd see people that worked for me, and of course they were like, "Oh my God, you look so good." I wasn't stressed. I didn't have wrinkles, or I didn't have circles under my eyes. Had to wear a suit every day. I mean that
Yeah.
was the culture of how I worked. So now to the controller's office. The first day was a holiday. Wow, January 1st, already off, and I'm like, this is really cool. And so I started, and it wasn't near what I thought it was going to be. An accounts examiner is nothing like having your own office. There's lots of accounts examiners. I was going to work in oil. Of all things, I was going to work in oil and gas. But literally, from being on my feet, literally when you're in retail, you're on your feet all the time. You're either moving stuff, moving fixtures, helping people, walking the floors. You're on call to do the whole store when people need returns signed or things like that. You're just always on your feet. You can barely get a lunch in. So I went from that to literally sitting at a desk, grouping documents together and paper clipping them and putting a batch slip on them and writing the number of documents on there so that they could go down to revenue processing to process. I sat on my butt the entire day. My butt was sore. I got home and I had never sat so much in my life. And I thought, oh my God, I went from managing 30 people to batching documents together and sending them down for them to be processed. But have faith, you got to put in the time.
Yep. Yep.
And I didn't. So the deal is, I finally figured out. So this is my experience when I first started. Found out I was a must hire because there was a hiring freeze going on. So at that time, whenever you start with the state and you're a must hire, everybody looks at you because they know you're a must hire. So
Sure.
everybody's kind of leering at you like, oh, here he is, all whatever. I will tell you, the first day that I started, because I was used to wearing a suit every day. So I wore a suit. And after 2 or 3 days, I was like, maybe I'm overdressed a little bit. So I toned it down to maybe some khakis and a shirt and tie, and that was still a little bit too much. So I toned it down some more, and literally within 2 months, I was wearing jeans. But the funny thing is back in '89, under Bullock, I worked the last 2 years of his service as comptroller. There was smoking everywhere. So when I walked in the section, all of these women are like this, sitting here with a cigarette out of their mouth. The smoke was so thick I could not see my desk.
Oh,
Uh,
oh,
and most of the men, most all the women smoked, and the men. And literally, when I got home every day, I smelt like I had been at a bar or a club. And that was how it was everywhere. And I thought, oh my God, wow.
wow.
So I did that for 2 years. And then when Sharp started in 1991, because the election was in November of 90, Bullock ran for lieutenant governor. He got it. And so John Sharp came in as comptroller. And when he started fresh with no smoking. And then that was actually kind of the time where there was a whole transformation in smoking in the workplace, and it became literally a global thing for no smoking in any work environment. Legislature passed stuff. You couldn't do it in stores anymore. I mean, the culture totally changed. But those first 2 years
Wow.
were quite challenging. Um, yeah, but here's the deal. I know I was lucky. I didn't expect any favors. Once I found out that I was a must hire, I thought, you know what? I'm going to do my job. And if I don't do it, fire me just like anybody else. I don't expect any favors. But here's the deal. A lot of people that were must hires had a reputation for coming in, sitting on their butts, not doing anything, reading the newspaper. And so that's why everybody was just leering at me like, oh God, another one. And I didn't expect that at all. I, I did what I was told. I didn't like what I was doing. It was a lot of clerical work, and nothing to against any accounts examiners in the agency. They're important. It wasn't my forte. I went from, being a manager to not being in management. And so, it was a huge culture shock job wise for me.
Yeah.
But the thing is, you got to look for opportunities. I decided that I needed to create my own niche. And the way I did that, so everybody that worked up there were no computers anywhere. There was one PC at the back of every section by the supervisor. And those of you that know anything about computers, it was an old 286. And Windows wasn't even out at the time. There was a menu-driven bulletin board type interface on the front called, I think it was called Pathfinder, and it was menu-driven. You used your arrow keys and you clicked on it, no mouse. And the software that was on there, I think the word processing software was called Samna, which eventually then later became WordPerfect. Not the same company, but that became the word processor of choice. A lot of you have heard of WordPerfect. Lotus 123 was the spreadsheet type application. And so the rest, everybody's desk, we had a dumb terminal that talked to the mainframe. CICS, T codes and all that kind of stuff. And you had access to whatever it is that you did with your job. And so the cool thing is they had staff development was teaching some computer classes, Lotus 123. And so my supervisor sent me out to that class. And I thought that was just the coolest thing. Now, mind you, back in the sections, this is what we had to do every day. You checked out a batch of work. Once I quit batching all the documents and moved on to bigger and better things, then I started working documents and whatever. And so what you would do is you literally go check out documents that were already cataloged by hand on a hand Xeroxed sheet, no computers, nothing. It was all handwritten. You would check out a batch of work of 20 documents or whatever, then you would clear them. And then every day, everybody in the section had to turn in one of these sheets that had been Xeroxed so many times. Remember when you were in school and the Xerox copies were kind of purple or blue and they were crooked? They'd been Xeroxed so many times. Well, that's what we had to turn in time accounting on. And there was a timekeeper in each section, and they got the yesterday's timesheets that everybody had put, how many documents they had, how many they'd cleared, how many were left, and they had to balance that every day for the entire section. It took the timekeeper 2-3 hours, literally every day, to balance all the work, because there were all kinds of different documents, different kinds of work that all had to be verified that the counts weren't off. And so I went to this Lotus 123 class, and my first thought was, wow, this is cool. This is a spreadsheet. That's what a spreadsheet is. And so I came back and I begged my supervisor. I said, hey, that little sheet that's Xeroxed 15 times that's crooked, I'd love to do it on Lotus 123. I'm not talking about formulas. I'm talking about just a shell. Let's just make it pretty. And so she let me do that. And some of the other people in the section were kind of whispering like, why is he getting to do that? Well, we're all having to do the work. This is where I talk about creating your niche. So I saw an opportunity. And then the cool thing is I did that, but then I learned more with Lotus 123 that you could actually key in numbers and automate it to where all the timekeeper had to do was take all the sheets that were turned in and key in those numbers, and then the formulas would calculate the inventory. And so we automated that. And then other sections around the division were like, oh, yeah, Jeff did that in his section. Go see how he did it, because they all had just one computer in their section as well. And then I went to WordPerfect class. And so I thought, wow, rather than back then, we actually had a word processing section or division in the agency where you would send, like if you were going to send letters to a taxpayer, you would fill out this work and put the form name for the letter, and you would give them all the information, and they would create all the letters for you and then tell you when they were done. You would go pick them up. So I said, hey, what if we did these letters in our section? So I automated some of the letters. We started doing macros where you could inject the taxpayer number. Next thing led to another, go ask Jeff, go ask Jeff. He probably knows. And so the word kind of started getting around that there was this little 25-year-old dude in in one of the sections, crude oil and natural gas section in account maintenance, which is my division. It turned a few heads, I think I sent an email out today that mentioned Wayne Acreage, who really gave me my start in recognizing that I was doing some stuff other than just what was expected of me, that possibly I could help improve processes, whatever. And another gentleman by the name of Clovis Boatwright saw that I had some potential. And the next thing I know, after being, so in 1991, account maintenance was on the 6th floor at the time. We were going to move up to the 10th floor, a completely gutted floor, going to have cubicles, because when I started, you could see from one end of the floor to the other. Desks as far as you could see. There were no cubicles except for the operations support area for the division. Everything else, the only way you knew a section ended and a new one started was they had these banners that are these signs that hung from the ceiling that would have crude oil and natural gas, franchise tax, sales tax, that's how you knew. And some of the desks were next to one another. There was no clear definition of where one section ended and the next one started. And you could see from one end of the floor to the other. So we were going to move up to the 10th floor and we were going to have cubicles. Everybody in the entire division was going to be set up with cubicles and pods. Man, that was really cool. But the cool thing about it was we were going to have a network up there. We were going to be connected. All of our equipment was going to be connected via a local area network. And they wanted me to help with that effort once the move started. So they kind of pulled me, even though I was still on the section, they pulled me to kind of help with that. And of course, then people were really kind of in the sections because they're like, we're doing all the work. This kid is still an accounts examiner, supposed to be doing work, but yet management has pulled him to work on other things. So I was still classified in the section, but I really wasn't doing that work. So I started working with that. We got everything moved. And then the cool thing from that point forward is they decided that, this is the future. We're going to start putting PCs on everybody's desk. We're going to take away the dumb terminals. Windows had just come out. Windows 3.1, way back there. Program manager, remember all that stuff? File manager, all that stuff. So they were going to put PCs out on every desk, take the dumb terminals away, and they were all going to be connected. We were going to buy a file server. And at that time, everything was decentralized. Every division did their own thing. Yeah, we were kind of all connected agency-wide, but every division had their own file server. Every division had their own person like me who supported them, who did everything. We all wore different hats in every division. So not only was I like the computer nerd for that division and helped replace all the terminals with computers, the file server sat right next to my desk, literally. The file server had 6 gig of storage space for the entire division. And that was a lot of space back then. Now we have files that are even bigger than 6 gig, literally. But so the file server sat right next to my desk. We had a backup system that sat right next to my desk, but we all wore different hats. I was also a division security coordinator. Keith Kirkgard and I, Keith was in the division too. We did the phones. So whenever the phones have nothing to do with, what we do now. But back then, like I said, you wore different hats. Some people that did what I did in other divisions were developers. Some people, it was a whole plethora of things across divisions that people did, different things. But we maintained that. We ended up buying a new server for all 3 revenue divisions that replaced that old one that I had. So we were probably from 91 to 95, 96, 97, we operated in that fashion where everything was decentralized. And then the boom hit, and all of a sudden we came to work one day, and all the people that did what I did from every division got huddled down in room 114. I'll never forget it. There's 60 of us, 70 of us from all over the agency. And they sat us down and they said, well, you, as of today, you all work for IT now.
Wow.
And of course, our eyes shot up because the weird thing about it is my division took care of me. And other divisions took care of their people. They gave them raises. They took care of them. And other divisions weren't so generous. I mean, especially with the number of employees. So I was well taken care of. I, had started getting some good increases.
Yeah.
I remember one year I went from, and I'm not boasting or anything, but
Sure.
I remember one year, I over from like a November to November, I went up 10 grand. And when you're only making $30,000 a year, 10 grand is a
Yes.
substantial amount of money.
Heck
But you do a good job. You keep your management informed, and you keep them from being blindsided, and you get rewarded. So all of a sudden we come to work, we're all working for IT,
Wow.
which means there was a consolidation of what our duties were. So some people got paranoid, went back to their division management, and got pulled back in doing something totally different because they were petrified of coming to IT. I stuck it out. Some of us did stick it out. Some people lost their jobs actually after a couple of months or whatever. Some people that had been there a while, they lost their jobs, but I kept mine. And the next thing you know, they made me a supervisor of desktop support because we ran a really tight ship in account maintenance.
Yeah.
When you work in a division, literally of 180 people, and I could rattle off everybody's user ID off the top of my head. That's how intricately we worked with account setups and all that kind of stuff. I knew them so much in my head. I could walk around to any desk and I knew that person's ID, and it would freak everybody out. They're like, how do you know that? And I was like, because I've typed it in 50 million times. But we ran a tight ship. We were consistent. One thing I believe in is consistency is the name of the game. If everything is different, you're just going to open yourself up for errors. So we ran a really great ship, and I guess it turned heads. People recognized it, and so the next thing you know, we all got consolidated, and sooner or later, I wound up as the supervisor for desktop support over
Wow.
all of the people that were doing what I did. And I did that for a couple of years. Rick Williams worked for me. Keith, Keith, who's like way up here now over me and knows a lot more than I do, but he was my backup and at the time in the division, and then he ended up working for me, and a lot of people, a lot of really good people. The problem is, even though my degree was in management, I'm really not cut out to do management and IT. And the reason is I had 3 people on probation. It was like babysitting, and I didn't
Yeah.
want to do that. And I lost my technical stuff. My technical skill set kind of started dwindling because I was having to do all my time doing management stuff, which I didn't enjoy, even though that's what my degree was in. And so my boss at the time, I think, recognized that and said, you really don't like being in management, do you? And I said, no, I really like the technical side of things.
Yeah.
And so we agreed that I would not do that anymore. I would be kind of work on some special project stuff. And so that ended my tenure as being in management at the time, and I went back to being technical. And
Okay.
from that point forward, after I did that for a while, Keith had already moved to the Microsoft server team. So he got a jump start on me, and then I eventually moved to the server team. And while I was there, I was Terrell's backup for email. Terrell was the exchange admin. And by the way, Terrell and I went to Texas Tech at the exact same time and did not know it. We lived in
No
the
way.
same dorm. We lived in the same dorm at the same time period. I recognized his picture from later in life. He showed me when he was younger.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I think I remember you, but we never knew it. So it's a small world sometimes.
It is.
So we're both Red Raiders. But anyway, I was Terrell's backup. I was learning Exchange, learning how to do all of that. And then I think we had an administration change. And really all of the administration changes up to that point, I think I had been through Bullock to Sharp, Sharp to Strayhorn or Rylander, and then Rylander to Combs. So right about that time, when I was on the server team, there was a new administration, the Combs administration. And, I'm not going to lie. And so anybody that came in with that administration, I apologize, but I think it was brutal. It was brutal.
Yeah.
A lot of just a lot
A lot of
of
disruption.
a lot of a lot of forceful obedience. I don't know how else to say it. I mean, I've seen
Sure.
people cry. I've seen men and women cry. Coming out of whoever was placed over IT. I mean, it was crazy, and it was brutal. The deal is everybody knows how big our agency is, how important it is, how important that our agency is to state government. And, these folks came in and just wanted to change everything in the first 6 months, and you can't do that. I mean, I think even with my little old degree in management, I think any good manager or any good new boss is going to come in and see how things operate, get to know all of the functions of the agency before they come in and try to change anything. But they didn't want to do that. They thought they knew how to do everything better, that we were all a bunch of dummies. We lost a ton of people in IT that were eligible to retire, that were still working because they loved their job and it was a great place to work. But a lot of those people said, I'm out of here. That's it. So we lost so many people. I hated to see them go. But it is what it is. And you do what you're told and shut up. And we did what we were told and shut up. So they pulled me aside one day. It was back in 2008. And they said, hey, there's this application called SharePoint. And we want you to kind of oversee the deployment of SharePoint in our agency. And I didn't know what it was. I learned really quick, but back then it was part of, well, it wasn't around at that time, the O365 environment, but it was just another big platform like Exchanges for mail. SharePoint was a collaboration deal, and so we put together a project plan, which very closely resembled what Microsoft had put together already, saying it would take about 6 months. Actually, we said it was going to take we said we need about 5.5 months because I did all the research. I figured out from looking at everybody who had done this before, based on the size of our environment, based on the number of users we had, based on the setup we needed. We needed 2 front-end servers, 2 application servers, a SQL server. We had to make all of that work, and those were all in-house. And trying to make everything work together and learn SharePoint, not only from the server perspective of getting the application set up, but learning how to use it, because that was a whole nother thing. Nobody knew how to use it. So we put together a project plan, said, hey, we need about 5.5 months to get this rolled out. Microsoft said 6 months, so we were pretty close. And we go down to the people that I was talking about earlier, and we say, all right, here's our project plan. We think we're going to need 5.5 months. And without even asking questions, without even listening to us, they just looked at us for their arrogantness and said, you can do it in 3 months or 11 weeks, half the time. So, again, we did what we had to do. It's amazing what you can do when you have to and you think your job's on the line. But I did what I had to do. I stayed up late every night. I watched training videos. I did whatever I could. Not scared to say it now, but my buddy that worked with me on the server side, Paul Swan, he's not here anymore, but he helped me tremendously on the server end of it. He did that part, and I did kind of that part a little bit, but more of the user interface end of using SharePoint as a user and an administrator. He bootlegged. There was a company back then called CBT Nuggets, and they had training videos. And of course, back then you could bootleg anything really. And he bootlegged me some videos for me so that I could watch them and learn it. And I watched the videos. There was a user series of being a user, of how to use it. And there was administrator series. They each had about 12 or 13 videos, an hour long. Yeah. And I watched them over and over and played and tested over and over until I learned it. And didn't claim time for it because I don't think they would have given it to me anyway. Just stayed up late, doing what I needed to do, 11:30 every night. And we made our deadline. And, we did it. I was proud of the fact that we came through and we were able to deliver. So I say solely, I still had Paul on the server end when server errors would happen and all that kind of stuff. He would research into that because that was more on the server end, and I wasn't a technical person. Even though I'd been on the server team, I wasn't used to researching all that stuff, and he was a whiz at that. So he could see a correlation error and look it up and figure out exactly what it was. Oh, the front end load balancer is not, it's not serving whatever. And so I was the sole probably SharePoint administrator for 7 years by myself, literally. In the agency, all the site collections, all of the divisions that use SharePoint, all of the stuff we did with InfoPath and SharePoint Designer and workflows and all that kind of stuff was solely me. I'm not saying that to give myself kudos. It's just nobody recognized it, that, I was like in so deep, still keeping customers happy, but, because you do what you got to do. But, it was a very stressful time. And in 2015 was a big year for me. I lost my partner. to cancer, 5.5 months from being healthy to dying.
Yeah.
Trying to do that and trying to be a sole administrator was hard on me. We had a reorg in IT, and I think they reorged the server team and some other stuff. And so rather than move me at that time where Terrell was going and the other places, they decided to move SharePoint under application services under ON. Those of you that remember ON. And so I was going to work for NOS. And so when I moved up under NOS, let's see, my partner died in July. I moved up in October, November of 2015. And so that's where I've been ever since. I mean, technically. And ON and NOS recognized that I needed help. And so that's the very first time that they recognized that if we wanted to take this to the next level and use it throughout the agency and it be a valuable tool for our users and for the agency, that we had to bump up resources in order to make all that happen. So they recognized it. They got me help. And so fast forward to now you see the team that we have. I think we're still understaffed. There's a lot more that we could deliver for the agency if we had the staff, because along this time, not only did we have SharePoint, but then COVID hit. All of a sudden we're forced to work from home, and we needed a new vehicle for communicating in the agency. WebEx was not going to cut it. I don't think any company was really prepared for all of the changes that were going to happen with COVID. And so you went from literally everybody working in an environment in-house to seeing everybody every day, to all of a sudden being at home and doing meetings through WebEx and all these other things. And we realized that we weren't ready. And as a result, meetings crashed. The companies did not even allocate enough to all the people that were users throughout the world for using their platforms, because nobody planned what happened with COVID, and all of a sudden everything changed overnight. So that's when we took the opportunity to realize, hey, let's look at this Teams thing. And Vince, you were in on that from the very beginning. We realized that we needed another tool in the agency to communicate and have meetings and all that kind of stuff. So during COVID, we rolled out Teams. Vince, you led that project very admirably. I mean, couldn't have done it without you. I mean, you were the sole person who kept everything together and kept us going and kept us on target, and we did it. We did it, and it's still a work in progress because Microsoft's forever changing stuff every day, literally. But so we went from literally supporting just SharePoint to supporting Teams. And then from Teams, all of a sudden, with all the little apps that are associated with M365 and Teams and SharePoint, all of a sudden you got Whiteboard and you got Planner and you got Power Platform. SharePoint Designer wasn't going to be supported anymore, which was doing all of our workflows. They were going to quit it, deprecate it, and move to a bigger platform that's more global called Power Platform, Power Apps, Power Automate. So that all had to be learned too. And so we had to convert all those workflows. We had to work with the divisions to identify those. And, the work never ends. And so there's more than enough work for this team. And I couldn't be prouder of the people on this team. Reggie, Ting Ting, over this span, Karen Wade was on the team, and then she went to property tax, but she contributed a lot. We had the first person they ever got me to help me, her name was Jaden. That didn't work out, unfortunately. And I wished her well, but she kind of came and went. And then I got Ting Ting, and then Reggie, who's a natural when I'm natural, I mean, Eddie's, he's a programmer by nature, a developer by nature, just kind of slid in and just kind of literally transformed some things. And then Ting Ting had SharePoint background already. I was part of getting her hired. The funny thing is, when Jaden left, they were only going to give me one person. And I kidded around with On and said, man, I wish we could get two people. Yeah. And for whatever reason, they said, well, maybe we can make that happen. And so that's when I went after Reggie. And Reggie came over, and he's been, a huge asset for the team. They've both learned so much, but it doesn't stop there. So here we've absorbed all these extra applications with the same number of people. So yes, I think the team is still understaffed because we could deliver a lot more to the agency. I feel like if we had more hands, that's just simple mathematics. But then all of a sudden, we had another management change about a year ago. Nos left. He went to go be with On at TxDOT. And Ade moved over, and he brought DocuSign with him, which is a whole nother environment, totally not related to Microsoft at all in any way. no integration, nothing. And that's a big environment in our agency. All the PAFs, all the forms that have to be digitally signed, and all that kind of stuff is done in DocuSign. And kudos to the team that rolled it out. That was the Dave's team, the PMO, Kate, all those people got it rolled out in the agency, but now it was coming to us, and we had to learn that as well. So we got yet another platform to absorb with the same number of people. So, of course, me, not that I complain a lot, but, I'm going to call a spade a spade. And I said, look, guys, we got to have some help. This is overwhelming the team. We don't have enough people to do a good job. And what I'm scared of, because our team has always been known for customer service, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
We cut the BS. We don't believe in having a meeting in order to have a meeting in order to have a meeting. The best way to take care of business is to meet with your customer, find out what they need, get requirements, do it ourselves, because we know what questions to ask. If you have to have another team ask the questions and then another team meet with you, then all of a sudden all the questions weren't answered, then we've got to go back and meet with the original people to get what their original requirements were and talk strategy on how we can implement that. It's just a lot of wasted time and effort. So we cut to the chase. That's how we're used to operating, and it's been successful for us. But, I told our management, our leadership, I said, there's no way we can continue to deliver this level of customer service if we don't get some more hands. We just can't do it. And I'm scared stuff is going to slip. And then I don't want the reputation of going, yeah, we're waiting on that team to get this done, or we're waiting on that team, because we had such a really stellar reputation. So thank God our leadership recognized that and got us some help with DocuSign. They moved Hannah over. We don't have her 100% of the time. She's on our team, but she still has to take care of one item from her other area that she's the only one that knows how to do this in the agency. So she still has to kind of do that work, but we have her most of the time. And so she really absorbed a lot of the day in, day out DocuSign tickets for us. She's awesome. She fits in the team perfectly. And that's one thing I have to say about our team, and I'll just keep giving them kudos until the last day I walk out, but we mesh well together, mutual respect, we debate, we don't always agree, but we all come to the same conclusion at the very end, and we stick with that, and we agree on it. We don't go under the covers and say, yeah, I wish we could have done this, but so-and-so was being stubborn and didn't, we don't do that. We don't play those stupid games. And I think it served us well. And I know they will continue to do that long after I'm out the door. I know they'll continue to take care of customers. I hope they are able to backfill my position. We'll see. I've offered to come back, maybe help for a year on some projects that just need dedicated attention, where I'm not working tickets and not going to meetings. It just needs to get done. And so trying to carve out some time to just work on that solely is something I'm willing to help with if they'll have me back. I don't know. I may be gone and decide I don't want to come back. There's a lot of changes going on right now in the agency, as everybody knows. I mean, I thought I was going to be going out with Hager, but that didn't happen. All of a sudden, he got a new position. He was appointed chancellor at A&M, and he left last year. And so we've kind of been on, temporary appointed comptroller, and now there's a new one that's starting today, actually, August 3rd, or as effective August 1st, but today's the official work day. So I'm sure they're going to have their own agendas and things they want to accomplish. I've been through enough of these to know that some were very peaceful, and others, like I said, like Combs, it was very brutal. So I don't know what this one's going to entail. I haven't worked with them enough, but I hope they're willing to give everybody the benefit of the doubt. And they may say we don't want to hire old people back. We want new blood. They may say there's a hiring freeze, which I think there is a hiring freeze right now. So there's lots of different things that they're going to want to accomplish under their tenure, and so we'll just have to see what happens. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. If I come back, it's just icing on the cake. If not, I don't need it. But if I do need it, I can go somewhere else. If they don't want to bring old people, older, I say old, I mean retired people that have knowledge, institutional knowledge. If they don't want us back and want any blood, I respect that. And so everybody's different. We'll just to see what happens. And I know everybody's a little paranoid right now on what's going to happen here in the next few months, but people have gone through it before. You'll make it. You'll make it. Just do my deal is just do the best job you can do what you're told, and that's all you can do. My grandmother always used to tell me, they can kill you, but they can't eat you. I don't know what that means, but it always sticks in my head. So you know,
Yep.
just do what you're told. And, you know, if it doesn't work out for you for whatever reason, either coming from the administration or coming from your own personal whatever, then, you know, do what you got to do.
That's
But
right.
I know that I've never worked for a more capable group of people than, you know, the people that work at our agency from the very get-go. This agency's always been special. And I know people that have worked at other agencies, and I would tell them things that we did over the years, or the things that we used to do to have fun, or the things we did outside of work, or this or that. And I mean, all my friends were envious of our agency. I mean, it's got some of the best people anywhere. And I know people that have left here and gone to other agencies as well, who say, you know, really, there's nothing like the comptroller's office. And so I've seen a lot of things over the years. I mean, Y2K, oh my God. We met 2 years on a project to get ready for that, and then it came and went. It's hard to believe that's been 26 years ago. And,
Yep.
you know, the world didn't blow up, even though we
No.
had planned for it to blow up for 2 years.
Yep.
That was a
Internal.
major thing that I remember over my time. You know, it just
Yeah.
you just take everything as it comes, and
Absolutely.
and go with it. And you know, the older I've gotten, I speak my mind. I don't let people try to run over me or disregard my advice or my opinion on how I think some things should work, having been doing this platform since 2008 and knowing all the things that we do and knowing how the agency operates. And, you know, yes, there's always going to be changes, but I mean,
Sure.
you know, sometimes I think people do things when it really doesn't make sense. And I'll call it out now. It doesn't make sense. Why are you doing that?
Yep.
I tend to be a little bit more abrasive than I used to be, but it's just because, you know, I've seen the result of when you don't speak up and you let something happen. I mean, one time I was on a email team in the agency before we went with Microsoft Exchange, and we had been on Microsoft, even though it was an Exchange before that. And there were some key people in the agency who didn't like Microsoft at all. And they were damned and determined to get us off the Microsoft platform for email. Well, they formed this team, and this person was over that team. I got picked to be on that team, and we ended up going to the platform. I don't know if anybody ever remembers it. It was called Simian, which then it became SendMail, and it was not a excuse me. It was not a platform that was proprietary as far as having certain Microsoft stuff in it. I mean, it was very open source,
Okay.
but it also was ugly. You know, as a result, it wasn't, you know, it was kind of quirky to use, but it was open source. So even though it checked all those boxes, and those were the requirements, so you were almost guaranteed that you weren't going to have Microsoft because Microsoft still had proprietary stuff built in. And if the goal was to get rid of that, then you couldn't pick Microsoft. So I was part of this team that actually signed the document that said, we don't recommend Microsoft, we recommend this. And I forever am I'm mad at myself for not speaking up and saying, you know, I think we're going to wind up with Microsoft again because that's our environment. Everything we do is in Microsoft. Our desktops run Windows, you know, everything. And sure enough, what happened after Simian and turned into SendMail after 3 or 4 years? What do? We go back to Microsoft Exchange, where I was training under Terrell to be his, you know, his backup person. So, you know, my deal is speak up. You know, even if you know you seem like you're the only one, if there's something you don't agree with, you know, just speak up and get it out, because, you know, don't be coerced or forced to do something that you don't agree with and signing on the dotted line, because literally the next administration could have come in and said, who is the team that put together this Simian and SendMail? Let's get rid of them. They're not of value to the agency or whatever. And there I would have been, you know, yeah, I'm one of them. So anyway, gosh, I've been talking nonstop, man. I'll give it back up and let you hit me up with questions.
Okay, no, that sounds good. No, this has been great. You were muted, by the way, Jeff. Can you unmute and repeat everything you just said? No.
Oh my God.
Just joking.
Just joking.
No, this is fantastic, and you pretty much covered all the points I was going to ask you about anyway, in a very nice chronological narrative form. So this is great. There were so many times I almost raised my hand because I wanted to take it down another thread, but I knew like we only have a limited amount of time. At some point, the recording will end and we'll chew up all our storage.
I'm still here. Hang on.
So I had a couple of things written down, and this is going way back in the convo, but Oh, this is fantastic. Okay, now tell me real quick, who's this guy?
This is Gretel.
Gretel. Oh,
Yep.
look at
She
her.
she's 14 years old,
Oh,
and I've had her since she was about 6 months old.
oh
So
my gosh.
yeah,
Oh, so
she's a
cute.
Yorkie poo, although she looks more poo than York. But she's my baby girl.
Yep.
She's my last one. At the time I got her, I had 4 dogs.
Is that
And I've
right?
slowly, yeah, my dogs were about 2 to 3 years apart, 4 years maybe.
Okay.
And so over the years, after my partner died in 2015, I had four.
No.
Then I lost one in 2016. I lost one in 20, and then I lost one last year. And she's my last one. I will always have a dog, but I don't know that I need four.
Yeah.
Four was a lot, but there was reasoning behind that. Oh, if
Sure.
the oldest one dies, then
Oh yes.
if I only have one more, then they're going to be hurt and alone. So I'll have another one. So when the oldest one dies, then yeah, and it goes from there. And the next thing you know, you'll go from one to four just all of a sudden. So,
Yep. Yep.
but I couldn't get another one right now. She's too. All of
Yeah.
her other ones that she was used to have passed, and so I don't think it'd be fair to her to
Oh,
bring another
upset.
one in. So I'll
Oh,
definitely get another one. I can't be without a dog. I mean, they make the world go round.
good.
uh,
Good.
and I'm just
Yep.
a dog lover. So, well,
Good.
I'm any kind of
Same.
animal lover, but I would have a cat, but they don't like me. A cat, all a cat does is look at me and go, and I
Yes.
don't know what it is.
Right.
So, I mean, they just look at me and, so that's fine. But I would love on a cat if they loved me back. So
I am sure. I'm sure. Well, I'm gonna jump around a little bit now. Do you mind if I share? I'm gonna screen share a photo that you sent earlier. Do you mind if I share that? Because I
no, not at
just
all,
said for
not
the
at all.
audience. I'm gonna screen share that real quick, just for the audience. Jeff sent out an email, and I just love this. There's a lot to unpack here. I think this is the most like meme ready, from the setup here. But I
Well, the
mean,
weird thing is it's black and white. Keep in mind, this was Hawaiian Day, so everybody's
yes.
outfits are colorful with
Oh,
flowers and bright color. I'm leaning on a
yes.
huge slice of watermelon, and there's a beach
Fantastic.
ball, and everybody has on leis. And I don't even know if you can see, but on the very back wall, there's like a buoy or
Oh,
a
okay.
life preserver thing.
Yes, yes, yes.
So
Okay.
here's the deal. This was the first year I was at the comptroller's office, so I still had real good connections with Dillard's. And when I found out we were going to have a Hawaiian Day, I reached out to the store manager and I said, "Hey, can I borrow some props from Visual that y'all aren't using?" And it was the time of year where they didn't have those kind of props up. So I literally had a palm tree. You can't see it. There's a palm tree somewhere. You should have seen me going down the street with all these props in my car. The palm tree was hanging out the window, but they were generous and let me. There's all kinds of props that you don't even see in the screen. And that watermelon is bright red that I'm leaning on. But all of those people are gone. I'll start from left to right. Those
Sure.
of you old timers who knew some of the people that were here, that's Teresa
Okay.
Morales. Teresa Morales used to be the records retention person, coordinator in the agency when she left, but she was in account maintenance, obviously, way back then. Jerry Leonard, she retired. Wanda Hughes, you can barely see her gray hair. She's the third one from the left. She has passed. Betty Fairchild. Some of these people retired literally like 2 years after I started. So some of them are gone. Betty Fairchild, I don't know her status these days. Frances Torres is next. Those of you that
Oh,
knew Frances, yeah,
yeah.
she used to be, Frances was manager of account maintenance, manager of unclaimed property. Yeah, she was quite well known in the agency.
Sure.
Lois Vinklaric. Uh, in fact, she is related to Chelsea Vinklaric or Chelsea
Oh,
Vinklaric
sure.
by marriage. I think she remarried. I think she actually was Lois Cummins when she left, but her original name was Lois Vinklaric, and I think through marriage she's related to Chelsea. Chelsea. It's either Chelsea or Chelsea.
Yeah.
I don't want to misspeak, but
Awesome. Mhm.
and then the lady with the longer hair is
Mhm.
Maureen. She was an interpreter because back then there were a lot of hearing impaired people in the agency. So the girl holding the beach ball in the front is Jill Lindsay. She
Mhm.
was hearing impaired. And so
Oh,
Maureen was there to help her with her job for interpreting and all that kind of stuff. So she literally followed Jill everywhere around in meetings and all of that, and would, even when we had team meetings and stuff, she would, interpret for Jill. The gentleman next to Lois, back in the back, way back in the back, is Jane Staten.
Mhm.
And then the gentleman on the far right is Gus Evgenides. He was such a nice man. I think he was from Greece, if I'm not mistaken. And he was just a sweetheart, a sweet, gentle soul. And then there's me in the front, and then the far right on the bottom was Diane Rober.
Okay.
She, I think, stayed with the revenue divisions until she retired. But yeah, everybody there is gone except for me. And I had hair, and it was dark, and
Yeah.
I was a little thinner, all that kind of good stuff. So
If I had to guess, it looked like that you could have sent your old retail buddies, like, I ain't never coming back. Just
I
leave
know,
it at
right?
that.
But oh my, whoops, excuse me.
Uh,
When I brought the props in, though, the team thought I had just, I mean, they were so ecstatic to see, and they were like, "Oh my God, what is this guy bringing into the office? Palm trees.
I
This
bet.
dude is some serious stuff. Whatever, And yeah, it was fun, And again, in the email that I wrote today earlier to people in the division and some other people, I said, I think that got me some really good brownie points, and they're like, "Yeah, we could probably keep him."
Yep.
So but yeah, that was way back in the day. That was still when the desks were all in a row on that one floor, so that was on the 6th floor. So it had to have been 1990 or nine. It had to have been probably 1990.
Yeah.
And I started January of '89, so it was somewhere in those first 2 years, probably in the first few months, actually.
Interesting. So yeah, so a couple other points. I just want to circle back just for fun, because I learned a lot about you that I didn't know. So this has been a ton of fun for me. But I'll circle back as a fellow band nerd. But the All-State Band, those who don't know, I'm familiar with this because even though I'm a few years behind you, yeah, that's a big deal. I would have loved
Yep.
to have been part of that. I did make it to regional band as
Region, there you go.
bum, but
Yeah.
but I can't even imagine the All-State. That, folks, is some incredible musicians. I just remember
Thank
going to
you.
region, coming from high school, in my high school, and going to region. And I remember the first time we did like a warm up, just the band, and I got goosebumps. I was like, "Oh, these people sound good."
Yeah,
And it was just
region is the
region.
best. Yeah, region is the
It's
best
region.
people in your
State.
area, and then there's
It's
area.
yeah,
Well, when
yeah,
I was there, I don't even know if it's still the same, but
uh-huh.
it was region, and then
Yes,
pre-area, and then
yes,
area,
that's right.
and if you made it at area, then you made all state.
That's
And
right.
so
That's right.
yeah, so I
Yeah.
almost made it in the 9th grade. They only took 2 bass clarinets,
Oh
and I
wow.
and I was third.
Yes.
I was
Wow.
third in the
Yeah.
9th grade, so I almost made it 4 years, but I'll take 3.
Heck yeah.
It was a privilege and an honor, and I'm still a band geek. I'm
Yeah.
going to be gone
Yeah.
actually this week. I'm out Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Those of you that know anything about drum corps,
Mhm.
I'm still very into that, and I have been for
Yeah.
years. A buddy of mine go up to Indianapolis every year, and it's this weekend. So the prelims and the semifinals and the finals are this week in Indianapolis. So if you remember the drum corps, Santa Clara Vanguard, the Cavaliers, Blue Coats, Blue Devils,
Yep.
all those people it's basically kids from all around the country, age 16 to 21. They're from your high school bands, but they try out for these different corps. And then as they get their music in the winter break, and then as soon as school's out, they start meeting wherever it is, California, Wisconsin, wherever, Boston, and they travel literally all summer, going to different destinations. They crisscross all over the country. There was a big regional at Alamo Dome 2 weeks ago, and all the corps kind of converge there. So I go to San Antonio too, and my buddy and I go to that one.
Yeah.
And so we got our first taste of them, and then we'll see how they change the shows between now and Indianapolis. But it's at Lucas Oil Stadium. Been going for years. We'll continue to go.
Yes.
Our marching band in high school was very much drum corps oriented. We had a rifle corps, we
Oh,
had,
sure.
flags and all that. And we
Wonderful.
the corps that we loved back then. Of course, it's
Yeah.
they're different now. They were very national champions, back in the day. Now they're not so up in the top anymore. But Madison Scouts were
Mhm.
huge, and so we modeled some of our music and some of our drills after the Madison Scouts. So it's something very near and dear to my heart. I love it. So I'm a band geek still at heart. Yeah.
That's fantastic. So that, yeah, that's really my last point. Is kind of beyond as you set sail. I think the end of the month's technically you're in. So I think this probably answers part of the question. You probably got plenty of interest in hobbies, but certainly music and the band stuff, the drum corps stuff. Sounds like you're going to have plenty to sink your teeth into instead of worrying about SharePoint and Teams and all that good stuff.
Yeah, it is going to be weird. I'm not going to
Yeah.
lie. Other people that I know that have retired and left are like, yeah, it's kind of weird. It's like you don't have to get up and and I'm definitely not going to and trust me when I say this. I know people. And it's scary as well. But I know people that retired years ago, and if you don't keep busy and do something, I know people that literally left the agency that died within the first year.
Yes.
Not that they were sick, not that they were whatever, but they just didn't have anything to do. They got stagnant and just wanted to, I guess, maybe sit around and not do anything. And I definitely am not going to let that happen. I'm a plant nut, a landscaper, a landscaping plant nut. I've got tons of plants and flowers, and I love that. That's one of my passions. And in fact, what I really should have done when I was in college, because I'd always loved plants and flowers, I was going to be a landscape architect.
Oh, really?
And,
yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so when I got to tech, I realized, but I realized landscape architect degree was in the School of Architecture. But, I didn't think that. And when I lived in the dorm, the first year I was in the dorm, the guy, our RA, resident assistant that was in the next room over, he was in the School of Architecture as just architect, not landscape, but he was up 24 hours 7 doing projects. And I thought, oh my God, that is so time consuming. I don't know if I want to do that. If I had it to do all over again, I probably would have gone into that, because I think I really enjoyed it over the years of doing cool stuff for people, owning my own company. I have no doubt that I would have probably been successful at it. But now it's just a passion and a hobby, and I'm not professional at it by any means, but it gives me joy. And to have people walk by your house and go, I love your flowers, I love your plants.
Oh, sure.
It just gives you a real good good feeling, especially when other people could care less about their yards or could care less about their appearance of their house. To have people comment you on yours, it just really gives you a sense of pride. And so yeah, I'll always love playing with that kind of stuff.
No, that's great. And I think there's something to be said for hobbies versus once you're getting paid to do something, it may not be quite as attractive.
Exactly.
And so music and drum corps and that, and same, I've got so many hobbies, but I feel like, well, as much as maybe I would enjoy it to some degree, but also
absolutely,
I know, because my father worked for Texas Parks and Wildlife, and by the time he retired, he didn't really want to go fishing anymore.
Yeah. But, after giving all those citations, probably for yeah,
exactly. So anyway, but that's great though. So I guess we've chewed up a good amount of time. So I guess we'll land the plane here. But anything else before I stop the recording? Anything else you want to say, just to future people watching this, coworkers, or anything else you want to say before I end the recording?
Just enjoy the ride. If you don't like what you're doing, then do something else. Don't make yourself miserable. That's not to say that you're not going to have days where you're like, oh my God, I don't get this, or you don't understand. Sometimes the people above you are put in positions that they don't necessarily have a choice in either. So just try to realize that. Try to treat people the way you want to be treated. That's always served me well. And just if you think your retirement date is a long way off, trust me, it will come before you know it. My date was always, when I started, May of 2016, and I thought it would never get here, and that's been 10 years ago. And so it will pass you up, and just you're able to look back at all the fun things that you did and all the people that you met. It's truly a blessing. And I don't have anything bad to say about anything that's happened at the controller's office, really, and the people that I've worked with. I think everybody just does the best you can. We all want that, right? And so yeah, that's it. I've enjoyed it, Vince.
All right.
And I've enjoyed working with you, of course, because you've been you've made a real difference in, I know, my job. And it's a pleasure working for you and some of the other people that Jim Davis, and some of those people that we work with day in, day out on the things that we try to do to make this place a better place
Yep.
and a secure place where management doesn't get caught blindsided
Yep.
or like a deer in the headlights, because it could all it takes is one wrong move or one move that somebody wants you to do, but you're not going to do it because it could get them in trouble.
Yep.
Sometimes you just got to stand up and say this is not a good idea. And
Yep.
but anyway, I could keep talking. I know I'm a talker, so. Anyway,
Likewise,
but I appreciate you. I
That's
appreciate
honest.
you, Vince, a lot. So
No, thank you, Jeff. I really appreciate it.
absolutely.
Well, I guess with that, I will go ahead and end the recording. But thank you again, Jeff, the IT legend, CPA legend, and I think after this conversation, everybody sees why. But thanks for watching, everybody, and best of luck to you, Jeff.
Thank
and I
you.
hope we see
Thank
you
you, Vince.
sooner than later.
You might. We'll see. We'll keep our fingers crossed, maybe. So
sounds good.
All right. Take care, my
Thank you,
friend.
Jeff.
All right. Take care.